Hey guys, Ben Paint here, and today we're back once again for another video, and this time we are back down in our roots at Teamsport Bristol doing a Monday night social event, something that I haven't done for a couple of months, and I thought we'd throw it back, go back to where we started and just really give it our best go. Now I would like to apologise first of all for the lack of quality in the last video. The footage was really pixelated after I rendered it and it just didn't look the best. So if you have watched the video of the Club 73 round at Bayford Meadows, then I would like to apologise. And following on from that, if you are new here and you haven't already, could you please hit the subscribe button, as I really do appreciate it. And if you enjoy this video, could you hit the like button on it and drop me a comment as well, as it all helps. So jumping into the footage, as I'm doing some absolutely incredible tyre warming on the top section of Bristol, I decided to come down and do a Monday night social event, just because I feel at the moment my confidence was lacking a little bit, especially after the first SRK round at Castle Combe. So I wanted to hop back down here and just sort of take it back to where we all began and just give a Monday night social go. Just try and go for lap times, not really worry about racing too much, and just see what sort of lap times we could get. So this, in fact, the footage you're watching is actually the first session of 3. So my fastest lap time was in the first session. The second session I had a car that wasn't quite as good, so it was about 2 or 3 tenths slower, and then I was a tenth off my fastest time in the last session. I think this was due to the weather changing and it getting a little bit colder as the night went on. So jumping into our first bits of the session, obviously as this was the first session of the night, we had a yellow flag and a red flag as well, just so everyone could get on the track safely and get ready. So we're about to start our first flying lap now. We're tucked in here behind Harley and Harrison. Now these are two very quick drivers that are lighter than me, so I really wanted to try and just tag along behind them in a little bit of a train and just see if I could keep up with them. So you can see straight away I was trying to take some different lines on this evening. So usually, and I'll explain this as we get round to it in the footage, but I was trying to take some different lines, as Harrison takes a beautiful line down the inside of Harley there and actually manages to overtake him. But I was trying to take some different lines just to try and see if they improve my lap times. So we come round the big right hander here, taking it as smooth as we can and coming across the line on our first lap with a 40.103. Now straight away, as I mentioned, here was one of the sections where I was trying to take a different line. So usually through the Mickey Mouse section and the first corner, I usually go quite wide, open the corner up and try and keep my foot in as hard as I can, just so I can try and maximise my speed around the corner. But what I find is usually the back end of the car actually slides out and I actually end up losing grip and ultimately losing time. And then I also try into the double apex section at the bottom of the track to try and tuck in as much as I possibly can and just try and minimise the track length. But instead today I was trying to go a little bit tighter into the first corner and try and go a little bit wider into the first apex, which you will see now on this occasion. So by going tighter here and going wider, I was then able to get a better run into the Mickey Mouse section. You can see how much time I've actually closed up. Unfortunately, I got on a little bit of the dusty part of the track there, as Arthur goes for a beautiful move down the inside of Harrison as well and overtakes him. So a lot of action going on in the background. But as I mentioned, I just went on the dusty bit of the track there and that caused me to lose a little bit of time. Now, the top section I feel that I'm quite comfortable with, so I was quite happy with this, taking a nice wide line and again down into the final big right hander, missing the first apex just to try and get the car a little bit more rotated and able to allow me to put my throttle down a lot better and have a smoother application. So we come across the line on this lap with a 39.891 second lap, which I thought was reasonably good at the moment. We were hoping to improve on this throughout the session. Now here again on the bottom hairpin, I was trying to rotate the car 90 degrees before I even got to the apex. Now this is something that I don't usually do, as I feel that if I'm smooth with my brakes and the wheel turning, then I'll be able to carry the momentum. However, on this occasion I was trying to rotate the car completely before getting to the corner so I could get on the power earlier and get on the throttle earlier, and this would give me more revs going up the ramp, so I was able to get a better exit speed rather than having a better entrance speed, which ultimately, as we'll see later in the video, does actually help my lap time quite a bit. So here once again we're tucked up behind Harrison here and pretty much pushing him through the corners. I was trying to stick behind him just to see if he was warming up. He hasn't been at Bristol for a little while, so I was giving him some time to adjust, and here I tried to go down the inside, but unfortunately the gap sort of closed, so I had to sit behind where I was looking for the inside here, but I decided to go against it and decided to tuck him behind once again and try and force him to go a little bit faster. So we're coming down the ramp here, missing the first apex as I mentioned and going a little bit wider, and this allowed me to get on the throttle a lot earlier and get a decent run down the start-finish straight. We come across the line on that lap a little bit slower than our fastest lap so far, 39.589 second lap, and again just unravelling the corner a little bit through the Mickey Mouse section, and this meant that I was able to get a better run compared to what I usually do, where the kart feels like it's bogging down a little bit coming into that section. So again, getting a decent run, and if I'm matching Harrison up the ramp here, I felt that it was a pretty good run. He hits the inside barrier there. I look for the inside, but unfortunately he sits in the middle of the track. I actually go a little bit wide here while he goes narrow, and I perform a beautiful switchback move on him, and I was urging the kart forward down the ramp. No contact here, and I was able to get past. However, as you can see, I did clip the inside barrier and then the outside barrier, and that gave Harrison momentum. I didn't really want to go barreling down side by side into the start-finish straight, so I decided to let off and let him back through. You can see how much the back of his kart is sliding around all over the place, and he instead here just moves to the left a little bit, and this allows me up the inside, and I thought he was letting me pass, but as you can see he's bouncing like a rabbit all over the place, so I didn't know if he was trying to get past once again, but instead this allowed me up in front of him and allowed me to have a little bit of clean air to try and get some better laps in. Now that is sort of the last time we do actually see Harley or Harrison, or Arthur for that matter, in this session, as I did sort of break away and start to put in some decent lap times, which I was really happy with. So we come across the line on that lap, obviously battling with Harrison a little bit, a 39.724. Now with a little bit more breathing room, I was able to take more of the lines that I was trying to practice. So rather than swinging the car all the way to the left like I usually do as I come out of the second corner, I instead tried to take a little bit more of a narrow line, just to try and minimise the track length and try and run the car a little bit wider into the next corner, because sometimes I try and square the corner off a bit too much and it causes me to lose all my momentum because I'm actually slowing the kart down a bit too much. So instead I just tried to take a little bit of a different line this time, and it did actually pay off. Now we come around the last corner here, trying to be as smooth as possible, hitting the last apex, getting as close to the left hand wall as we can, and we come across the line with a 38.842, so our fastest lap so far. And I was looking to improve on this lap on lap now that I had a little bit of clean air ahead of me. I had my head down and I was just really trying to put in the best laps I possibly could, just to try and get away from the others. And I was looking over my shoulder there, and actually to my surprise I didn't realise that I'd actually forced about 3 or 4 kart length to Harrison behind me, which I didn't really expect because I know he's a very quick driver. And instead I was actually able to barrel away and just sort of trail a path for the others to follow. So coming into the last corner once again, missing the first apex and really tucking in tightly, maybe a little bit too tight on that occasion as we clip the inside of the barrier, but we come across some of our fastest lap once again so far, 38.809 second lap, which I was really happy with, knowing that the times were falling. Obviously the karts were beginning to warm up and the track temperature was at a reasonable temperature at this point, so we were getting some decent laps, some good track time in. There was a lot of grip, which I really enjoyed. You can see how little the back end of my car is actually sliding out, and this just allowed me to really focus on the lines that I really wanted to take. I was enjoying the first hairpin there quite a lot, so instead of braking before the corner and then turning in and then applying the throttle, what I was trying to do is sort of regulate the brake as I was turning, which meant that I was able to sort of minimise the distance that I was turning and also able to slow the kart down all at once. And this meant that I could get on the power a lot earlier and carry a better run through the second hairpin, which is something I haven't been doing too much recently, and I do find I lose a little bit of time there. So there was a lot of improvement on that corner compared to how I usually take it. So again, going nice and wide into the top right hander here, and again, as you can see, really trying to trail brake into the corner, which is where you hit the brakes quite hard and then lift off slowly to get the rotation in the car that you want without the back end sliding out. You can see there, going a little bit too hot there, having to counter skid there a bit through that corner, but we come across the line with our fastest lap yet, 38.639 second lap, which once again I was really happy with. We're just getting faster and faster on every lap. We're finding a bit more time in each of the corners, and this meant that we are really improving on our racecraft. And again, you can see almost getting the car turned in before the corner essentially, and that meant that I could really get on the power early and get as much power going up the ramp before I got to it, which obviously usually I don't do. I usually go for entrance speed on corners, and Where I was a little bit heavier, this used to be better because I found that I could get through the corners quite quickly, but I would compromise my exit speed. But instead, on this occasion, and you can see in the lap times we get to a 38.528 so far, it is helping, and we're able to get a better run at the corners. And again, got a little bit wide down that occasion, but it wasn't too bad. And as you can see, again, just really getting the car almost 90 degrees before the corner, missing the apex a little bit on that occasion, and looking over my shoulder, and to my surprise, I fully gapped Harrison and Harley at this point, which I was really amazed at. I didn't expect it to happen, and I was just really trying to knuckle down and just keep getting faster laps if I could. If we could get down to a 37-second lap, I would have been really happy. Now again, going nice and wide here, trying to hold the same steering angle throughout the big right-hander, as if you're counter steering, turning left and right a lot, it does lose you a bit of time and the car becomes unsettled, and that also means you're just going to lose time essentially. So by holding the same steering angle throughout rather than counter steering a lot, this meant that I was just able to get the power down, just regulate the brakes properly, and just carry on displaying what I was trying to display. So coming through the top hairpin section again, not quite forcing my way all the way to the right, just sticking a little bit more to the mid to right section of the track, just because you don't necessarily need to go all the way to the right, as it just adds on track distance that you don't really need. So again, coming down here, trying to take the straight as I possibly can, and we come across the line with a 38.590, which is quite close. We're being really consistent at this point in our lap times, but we haven't quite managed to break down into the low 38-second laps yet. So still trying to find some time in different places, especially in the corners, as that's the main place where I was going to gain. Going over the 2 dots there on the big right-hander, just so I could get the momentum followed all the way through, and by doing this, it actually means you could almost fully throttle the corner, because if you actually lift off a little bit through that big right hand corner, you can actually get a little bit more grip, and essentially by the car not sliding, you gain a couple of tenths that you wouldn't have. And that was the same sort of principle I was trying to apply on the first couple of corners here. I took the first apex a little bit more narrow on this occasion, just to see if it made any difference. I was trying to mix things up, reverting back to a little bit of my old ways of going through the bottom hairpin. You can see that I did just lose a little bit of traction by sliding through the last sector of it, and that obviously caused me to bog down a little bit. But instead here, we are taking some nice clean lines through the top section, really nailing the apexes and just managing to get the power down really early, and again getting the last corner really well here, getting on the power extremely early, and it means we come across the line with another very, very consistent lap, a 38.578 second lap. So I was really happy here, and I was coming up some traffic. I knew we were coming towards the end of the session now at this point, saying thank you to someone who moved out of the way, and saying thank you to this driver as well on the right hand side, as they did just move out of the way for me, which was really polite of them. And I knew at this point I was coming towards the end of the session, so I was just really trying to get my lap time nailed in, and luckily by going round we do actually manage to get our fastest lap on this lap. So coming into the final corner here, really almost sliding the car this time through the last corner, it actually allowed me to get the car faced in a straight line, and that was it meant that I could really get the power down. So our fastest lap of the session, and actually the fastest lap of the night, was a 38.246 second lap. So I was really happy. I actually managed to finish in first for this session. I also finished in first for the second and third sessions as well by about 2 or 3 tenths, which is not something I can say I can do, as the last time I finished in any event in first place at Bristol was actually in June last year. So this has given me a lot of confidence going into this weekend on Sunday at the second round of SRK at Hereford. But on this last lap we do come across the line with a 38.381, so not quite quick enough to catch up with our fastest lap, but still a super consistent lap nevertheless. So as you can tell, this does in fact bring us to the end of the video, so I hope you guys have enjoyed it if you've watched this far. If you have, could you please leave a like down below, as it really does mean a lot to me, and also drop a comment as well. I've left a link to Harrison and Harley's YouTube channels down in the description, so go and check them out as well, as they are some fantastic racers. My Instagram is also linked in the description as always. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.